Hey YouTube, today's video is on SimCity 2000, which despite its name was actually released in 1993. 1993 was a great year for video games and fun in general. We're talking Dragon Ball Z, Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter 2, Doom, and even Sonic 3D. If you like fun and you're not above playing video games from the 90s, you could have a great time with any one of those titles. But if you actually enjoy getting frustrated and you want to feel visceral pain with the weight of history on your shoulders, then I recommend playing SimCity 2000. This game is not the best SimCity, nor is it the best video game to come out of the 90s. But that frustration, coupled with its simplicity, reveals why it's actually a great game. You get to begin your city where all cities start, the year 1900 with $20,000. Even if you have no idea how to play SimCity, it's incredibly intuitive. Naturally, the first thing your citizens will want are power and roads, and then they'll realize that they need water. I recommend building a water network under the roads. It might be difficult or impossible to renovate, but I find that it works pretty well. There are 1,000,001 ways to play this game, but I like to build my cities in grids, divided into different sectors, the industrial, commercial, and residential zones. I keep the industrial zones along the edges so it doesn't impact the residential areas too much. Then I intersperse commercial zones to give people something to do other than just work. At this point in the game, your citizens will start bitching for police and fire protection. I cannot overstate this enough. Build as many fire stations as you can. I've built a Binopolis in every cardinal direction, and they all burn to the ground. I like to have at least 10 or 20 fire stations, which must be connected to power, not water. On the other hand, I like to defund the police, put all that money into the community. By now, your city should have grown immensely. You'll know your city is booming when increased trade and travel are demanded. One such way you can increase trade and travel is by building roads to the neighboring city, which begs the question, how did anyone get here beforehand? Another is that the citizens will demand an airport. This is how all airports are built. City planners sit in their stupid desk chairs, wait for the people to come and complain that they can't fly home, so boom, airport. At this point, you're definitely wondering, wow, so this is what it feels like to be responsible for a metropolis. I built this city from the ground up, and it's thriving. The power of the world in the palms of my hands. Then moments after you grace your citizens with their first airport, hijackers crash a plane into your city hall. For about 10 minutes, I sat in my chair helpless as I watched my city burn. I deployed all 20 of my firefighters, but to no avail. The fire spread, and everything was destroyed. At first, I thought this is the kind of pre-9/11 shit that I should expect from a crappy game that hates fun. But then, I took a deep breath and reminded myself that all the greatest cities and histories have overcome tough crises like these. I mean, the Great Fire of New York in 1835, the Great Fire of Chicago in 1871, and the Great Fire of London in 1666. It seems like every great city must overcome a great fire. So I reminded myself that I will make my city great again. It's at this point that I recommend just completely starting over and building with disasters disabled. I realized that I was using history to justify my shitty experience in the game. After rebuilding my city, this time New Binopolis, I gave the citizens another airport. And they apparently learned nothing, so they crashed another plane into the city center. Well, all I could do was sit back and watch my city burn into the ground. All cities go through difficulties, but this game will take your city child, a metropolis that you put your heart and soul into, 60 hours maybe, and let it burn to the ground while 20 of your firefighters just stand around and watch it happen. I realized that shortcoming of this game after building so many damn fire stations. I kept thinking to myself, is this what all city planners must deal with? Destruction, incompetence, and failure? I mean, this isn't Parks and Rec. I know it might sound like I hate this game, and that's because I do. I had a lot of fun playing with disasters off, until I hit a point where reorganizing my city was more difficult than just starting over. What the game fails to capture is how a city can evolve in more ways than just how much land it takes up. Still, there are several mechanisms in the game that give you a feeling of control over the development of your city. I really like the ordinances, which allow you to add a kind of personal touch. That said, other than their financial effects, it's not like enacting certain ordinances actually changes anything substantial about the way your city looks and behaves. The ordinances are fun, but their effects are very limited. There's also a kind of sim-nation, which can get you to feel as if you're competing against other cities, even though you can't really see them. Unfortunately, the only way to measure the development of your city is financially. You can see how much your city is worth. You could issue bonds to make more of a profit. The financial angle is interesting and important. After all, the city is a business of sorts. But that said, the only real measures of civic life are population numbers, which suggest you to maximize utility through the workforce percentage. In that sense, the game has a kind of utilitarian perspective on history. So long as you're maximizing utility and profit, you're succeeding. Still, the ordinances and construction projects grant a feeling of control over those parameters, perhaps because utilitarianism is such a simple system, it functions as an easy model for the game. But it's not as if this would be John Stuart Mill's favorite video game. There's a nuance in the way the player interacts with the city. You're incredibly removed, sitting in a godlike position, but a position that actually limits your understanding of what's happening on the ground. The simplicity of the game makes it accessible, but it also undermines the complexities of city building. Consider City Skylines. This game allows you to develop neighborhoods and other local areas, expanding the playability of city builders. You can even increase the value of land, which you can't do in SimCity 2000. In this game, if you don't get it right the first time, you need to start over. SimCity 2000 is unforgiving and simple, and in that regard it can be extremely frustrating. But at the same time, despite its simplicity, I found the game to be an emotional experience, in which I needed to contend with modern urban problems rather than problems from the 90s. Though much younger than City Skylines, SimCity 2000 effectively allows you to sympathize with the city's growth and development. The problem I faced included a need for renewable energy, air traffic control, and the role of police in the city, problems that our entire country continues to struggle with. The game is complex enough to experience these historical moments, but only if you develop them for yourself. The game is not a perfect model. For some reason, solar panels blow up, and riots will always start if the police are not constantly present. If you're interested in city builders, this is a great place to start, especially because you can play it online for free. I can think of few games as straightforward as this one that is able to provide such an emotional experience at the same time, albeit quite a dismal one, where all you can do is watch the final few houses burn.